This is the ultimate siege tier list for Year 8 Season 4 Operation Deep Freeze. Now, this tier list is a bit different than most others. Now, you have the obvious S, A, B, C, and F tier split. But there's two tiers I want to talk about specifically. Situational is a tier where you're going to have certain operators that may be really, really good, but only in certain situations. So if I put an operator in situational, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're worse than the people above them or better than the people below them. It just means that they're only good in certain situations. Rework operators may not even be that bad of operators. They may just be operators that need a rework because their mechanic or their gadget just doesn't really fit the game all that well. With that out of the way though, let's get into the actual tier list, starting off with Ashe. I don't think she's broken necessarily. Her ability doesn't do anything too crazy that gives you that much of an advantage. 1.5 times scope, G36C, Claymores, I guess if you want to count that. If you want to run in and you want to do damage, she's not that bad. Given the fact that she counters Mira and Maestro, who's going to be played a lot now, I think she's going to be pretty good, but I don't think she's necessarily broken. I just think that she's overall a good round pick. Now, operators in the good category, as you can see right here, are all operators that you could play every single round and nobody would complain, right? Anything beyond that are operators that definitely need a nerf in the broken category, but a lot of operators you're going to see are just going to be in the good category. Bandit is situational. You won't need to play a bandit unless you're trying to trick a wall, or you need to keep a wall closed that you can't get with Cade or Mute, which rarely happens. Pretty much any wall denial in the entire game is going to be situational. That also includes Cade, because you're only going to need to bring these two operators if you know they're going to be getting walls open that you want to keep closed. In that same vein of playstyle, I also think hard breachers like Thermite, like Hibana, like Maverick, like Ace are all going to be situational operators, because you're only going to bring these operators if you need a wall opened, and you'd be surprised there are some maps where you don't need to get a wall open, like let's say Hookah on Coastline. You don't need a Thermite there, you don't need a Hibana there, you don't need a Maverick there, and maybe you can get away with playing an Ace. I don't like sitting on the roof the whole game, so I'm not even going to use an Ace there, right? Situational operators at best. Does that mean that I think any of these operators are worse than the operators above them? No. Like I said earlier, these are just operators that even if they are really, really good, you're only going to use them in certain situations. An operator that you can use in every situation, though, would be Sledge. Sledge is good. 1.5 times scope, frag grenades, EMP grenades. I don't think Sledge is bad at all, right? He has a 3 armor, kinda sucks. He's not that best for verticality when he has Buck and Ram as competition, but for a beginner-friendly operator, he does the job perfectly fine. An operator that I think isn't maybe as good would be Oryx. I think if Oryx had that 1.5 times scope back, he would be put in good, arguably even broken just because of how good his gun is. But because of that, he is just in okay because he doesn't actually have any of those things. His utility and ability are both pretty useless. The only thing going for him is the fact that he has a T5. I don't think they need to rework his abilities much at all. I think they just need to buff him slightly in some way, whether it be maybe giving him a deployable shield, maybe making him a 3-speed, whatever it takes. I think Oryx needs a slight buff and he can be put into good. Now, if you thought Oryx was bad, let's go over somebody who definitely needs a rework, which is Sen's. Sen's ability, like concept of his ability, is actually not that terrible. It's just the fact that activating his ability really, really sucks because it has to find a very linear path that can be obstructed by a lot of things. So if they made it to where it actually showed you the path it was going to take before you threw it, I think that'd be really good. Or if they just made the hitbox a little smaller on the device, I think that would also be really good. And if they made it less counterable, I think that would be also really good. But the ability just needs to be reworked in some way. I think you can still get a lot of kills with his AR, or their AR, I guess, with a 1.5 times scope as well. So they're not a terrible operator. They just need to have their ability specifically reworked. Somebody who doesn't need their ability reworked, though, is Dokkaebi. And I'm going to put her in broken. Dokkaebi has the highest ban rate she's ever had in the entire game. She brings so much versatility. I think it's probably the most versatility out of actually anybody on attack. EMP grenades, Gone 6, the ability to deny information by calling people so people that are even dead can't get on cameras. Gain information with phone calls. You gain even more information by killing people if you got their phone off of their dead body from said phone calls. You have a 1.5 times scope. And if you want to play a more support playstyle, you also have EMP grenades for your hard breacher. So she just has everything, right? Dokkaebi is just an outstanding operator. They need to take something away from her. Personally, I think they should probably take away her EMPs or maybe the ability to kick dead people off of cameras, but that's just me. Somebody else who I also think is in broken is Valkyrie. I think Valkyrie's a great operator. She may not have a 1.5 times scope. Valkyrie was at the top of everybody's tier list seasons ago, and she hasn't changed, so I don't think her position in a tier list should also change. Valkyrie is great. Every time I bring Valkyrie, she is outstanding, especially on bigger maps where you could hide her Valkyrie cameras. Maps like Theme Park, Bank, Chalet, big open space somewhere in the map. Valkyrie definitely shines. And even on smaller maps too. She's really good if you know where to put her cameras. So Valkyrie, I think, is outstanding with the nitro traps as well. She's really, really good. People just kind of have been sleeping on her for a while. Speaking of slept on operators, I want to talk about these shield operators. I'm putting Blitz, Clash, and Monty all in situational. I do think there are certain situations where you can use a shield operator and it pay off if you know how to use the shield operator. If you want to elbow rush on Oregon with Blitz for the basement site, or you want to push rafters with Monty, or maybe you want to extend it to bakery on Cafe with Clash, either way, you can use shield operators as a way to make the defenders or attackers not know what to do about you to get some free round wins if your teammates know how to abuse the strategy that you're putting in hand. There are certain examples, like I said, the three that I stated are pretty common examples that your teammates would know how to play around, so you can viably do this in solo queue. So I think there are certain situations where you can use shield operators. That's about it. You shouldn't be using them every single round. An operator you can use every round, though, is Fenrir, and I think Fenrir is broken. Fenrir is the most banned defender in the entire game last season, and there's definitely a reason for that. The concept of his ability is broken, but the fact that he has 5 of his ability, 3 of which you can activate at one time with an MP7, and the ability to make rotates is absolutely insane. If I had to change one thing about Fenrir, I'd probably take his bailiff away due to the fact that he just has so much in one package that it's just almost silly to not bring him every single round that you get, especially on close quarters maps where they're forced to go into your mines. Somebody who's maybe not as good though is Tachanka, especially on console. Tachanka can have certain situations where he's viable, but even in those certain situations, you just don't want to be playing him due to the fact that Smoke and Goyo are both on the board and both viable picks as of right now. He has the same issue that Sens has, where his ability is just a little bit too hard to use to get value out of it. If it made it to where you didn't have to reload his gun, I think it would be outstanding. Or maybe if it was an under barrel gun, that would be even better. Maybe they made the gun to where you had to pull it out if you were using the SMG, but it was an under barrel gun if you had it on the LMG, which would give him an incentive to use the LMG while also fixing the main ability and its issues with it. So there are certain ways that they can rework Tachanka to like make him viable, but it's just, he's not viable right now. He's just not, I'm sorry. Someone who's a little bit more viable though is Castle. Castle is super situational. You can't use Castle on every site. I love playing Castle in higher elo. You can have huge brain plays with Castle, especially in solo queue rank where they don't know how to get around your strategy. I think Castle has one of the highest skill ceilings of any operator in the game. There are just some sites where you just can't play him and do much with him when you could be playing people like Azami instead. So I have to throw him in situational. Speaking of Azami though, I have to throw her in broken. I think she probably has the strongest ability in the entire game, hands down. They need to nerf her in some way. They've needed to nerf her in some way. The fact that her win delta is so low and she's not banned as much as other operators has kept the dev team from actually nerfing her, but I definitely think she needs some sort of rework in some way because she's just too broken. Like, she's just outstanding every single round you play her. You can play her on every single site. She's so versatile. She has a deagle for site setup. It's absolutely stupid. So definitely a broken operator for me. Just like how I think Solus is also a broken operator for me, you can make an argument for good, but I think in the right person's hands, Solus is an outstanding operator and arguably the best roamer in the entire game right now. But the ability to have the most information out of the game and also deny the most information out of anybody in the game is really good to have, while also being able to deny plants, having a good shotgun or the P90 with an SMG-11 and impacts. I think she pretty much has it all. I think if they took away her impact, she would be a little bit more balanced, but for now we have to deal with the fact that Solus is definitely broken. Someone who's not as broken though is Blackbeard, who I think needs to go in the rework section. They keep buffing Blackbeard slightly by giving him secondary utility like EMP grenades and frag grenades, but it's just not working due to the fact that his ability is just not good for the game. I'm not necessarily saying that Blackbeard's ability is bad as many people think it is, because there are certain situations where it can be good, and if you're not getting kills, you're probably just not good with Blackbeard. But that being said, he definitely needs a rework in some way. I think Osa should have been a Blackbeard rework. I've seen people talk about how they can make Blackbeard a special drone that flies around that has a bulletproof shield in front of that. I think that could be pretty cool, but he just needs a rework because his ability is just too bad in a one-shot headshot game, so gotta rework him. Another person that I think definitely needs a rework would probably be Callie. I think if they kept Callie's ability on Glaz's gun and they switch Glaz's and Callie's gun, I think that it would be perfect. But the issue with Callie is you're supposed to use her with utility, and you can't necessarily do that from far away in spawn, whereas Glaz, you're meant to get frags, and you can't necessarily do that from far away in spawn, right? So if they switch their guns, I think they'd be good, but her ability is just on the wrong gun, right? She has a good ability, it's just on the wrong gun, so they need to rework her somehow. Same thing with Glaz. Glaz is a little bit more acceptable though, because he has frag grenades, he's a 3-speed, and he has a bearing 9, and it's not as zoomed in as Callie, so it's easier to get kills with. Pair that up with smoke grenades, and he can be actually pretty good to like counter Warden players. So Glaz, not as bad as Callie, doesn't really need a rework. I think just needs a buff in some sort of way, and I think if they want to balance these operators, keep the same ability, just switch it on the guns, and they'll be perfect. But we've been talking about bad operators for so long, let's talk about good operators that you might not have expected to be in the good category, starting off with Doc. Doc is a pretty good operator right now. Now in a one-shot headshot game, you will not be healing people as much, which is why Doc and Rook and Thunderbird were so low for PC players. But given the fact that console players also watch my content and the 1.5 times scope meta heavily favors Doc, I think Doc is doing really well right now in terms of win delta, in terms of how much I'm winning with him, how much I'm actually healing is surprising me as well. Barbed wire, a bailiff first sight setup, I think just kind of has it all right now. Definitely not broken, but good for solo queue. I don't think anyone will complain if you play Doc, so I definitely think that he belongs in the good category. Same thing, I think Rook, especially on console, especially for newer players, you'll always get value if you play Rook. The 2x scope for spawn peeking is very, very good. As you can see by my tier list, I definitely favor people who are frag heavy, especially because we are in a frag meta. Now, realistically, utility-wise, these two operators are trash. You'd probably put them in okay in most other people's tier list, but I'm more of a realistic content creator. I don't go by the operator ability, I go by how they're winning in the meta, and unfortunately Ashe, Doc, and Rook, as much as their ability is bad, they're just kind of doing well, so I have to put them high because I'm more of a realist with my tier list. Somebody like Fuse, however, who I think is actually a better operator, is not doing good in the meta, and I think belongs in okay. 1.5 times scope on the best gun in the entire game, right? They'd be doing really, really well. That's just not the case, right? I could bump him up to situational, honestly, because there are like sites where you just can't use him. He's just lacking, right? Just kind of lacking. Good for utility clear, I think, if you want to get a bunch of ADSs while my disc deployable shield, so pretty nice. He is good on some sites, certain situations, right? So I want to put him higher than okay, especially compared to like Glaz and Oryx, but he's definitely not good compared to these operators up here who are consistently winning in the meta right now. IQ, I think, is good. IQ I would have put in situational seasons ago, but the fact that she has frag grenades and a 1.5 times scope and she's a 3-speed, I think she's really good, especially for the fact that she can counter things like Valkyrie, she can counter Fenrir, she can counter Solus. I think right now she's not terrible. I think this is the best she's been in probably years, so I have to put her in good right now. Again, it's early. By the time I've recorded this, the actual new season hasn't even come out. But by the time that you view this, chances are it actually has come out, so it's a bit of an early prediction to put her in good, but I think she's pretty good. I think she's pretty good. Someone who I think also is pretty good no matter where you bring him is Jaeger. Jaeger, not bad, not terrible, but you're not going to want to bring him all the time. If you do bring him all the time, though, no one's really going to complain. Now, they did add more frag grenades, so again, this is early in the season. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe Jaeger's actually the play now because of those frag grenades, but I think people are going to be opting out of using frag grenades for kills instead of utility, so I don't know that Jaeger's going to be as good. I don't think Jaeger's broken, especially compared to people like Dokkaebi, Azami, Fenrir, but I think he's pretty good. I might even put him at the top of good. By the way, these operators are not in any particular order. I've just been kind of throwing them in there. If we organized each tier, it would look a lot different, but Jaeger definitely belongs in high good. Kapkan, I think Kapkan's good. I don't think Kapkan's necessarily broken, because in the higher elo, like, you can just shoot his traps, and Kapkan is really dependent on the enemy team being dumb or blind or in a rush. So you can't really say that there's ever a good Kapkan player. You can only say that there's bad enemies. So for that reason, I can't put Kapkan in broken, but I can put Kapkan in good. Doesn't have the 1.5 times scope anymore, but it has the nitro cell, has the traps to be able to get kills, has the 9x9 one. So I think Kapkan's a good operator. Not really much to say there. But before I continue, I want to go over a little bit of some controversial operators, and I'm going to explain why I think they're controversial and why they are where they are. Starting off with Thatcher, I don't think Thatcher is broken or good. I think Thatcher is situational. If you actually drop your ego for a second and listen to what I'm about to say, this might make some sense. Thatcher, you're not using every round. I guarantee you, the person watching this video, you have played or seen a Thatcher 1 out of every 10 of your ranked games. Because 1, Thatcher's might just be banned on every map you're playing, or 2, there's just EMP grenades, so there's no reason to run Thatcher, right? There are certain situations where Thatcher can be viable when he's unbanned, and when, you know, you just want to get walls open, maybe they're bandit tricking, K tricking, Thatcher can be good. It's just not all the time, which is why he has to be situational. Brava, same thing. Brava can be good if you bring her every single round, but you don't need to bring her every single round, because Brava is only good if there's utility that she can hack, and 9 times out of 10 my teammates are just shooting my hacked utility anyways because they're stupid. So situational at best. I'm sorry, had to be situational. I also think Amaru is situational. You can put her in okay, that's fine, but there are certain situations where if you have a 5 stack and you have a strategy, Amaru can actually be she has the best shotgun in the game, an SMG-11, flash grenades. She kind of has it all for a fragging operator. She is situational. She's situational best though, at best, because there are some 5 stack strategies you can use as Amaru, but that's literally about it. If you want to bump her down to okay, completely understand. Ram, I also want to throw in situational. Can you bring a Ram every single round? Sure, just like you can bring a Thatcher every single round, but it doesn't mean you should, because Ram specifically is good at playing vertical only from top down. So if they're ever going to a second floor site, which, by the way, 90% of players go second floor sites on the first and second objective, then she's not going to be that good, which is why I put her in situational, because a lot of the times you're playing on second floor. But I still think she's an outstanding operator, do not get me wrong. Next, I want to go over Capitao. Capitao I also think is situational. I used to meat ride Capitao. I would put Capitao in good, but I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think the only times that you're going to use fire over, let's say, frag grenades is because you're trying to flush somebody out with a very specific strategy. The only time you're going to use his smoke grenades is if you're using them for one-way smoke grenades so that you can get the plant down, and again, a very specific strategy. So I think Capitao can be very good, very lethal, but only in certain situations and strategies, which is why he is situational. Mira, I also think, is situational. You can't play Mira every single site. Let's take Hookah on Coastline, for example. There is not a single place on the objective for Mira that her Mira window can't easily get shot. If you want to put it somewhere in billiards, it's going to get shot by the window or from the roof. If you want to put it on the hookah wall, it's going to get shot by the roof, or it's going to get Twitch droned. Like, it's not going to survive. There's not every single site you can play Mira. That's just how it is. Mira's great. She is a little bit worse now that Ashe and Callie can counter her, but she's just situational. You can't play her every single site. But now that all of these super controversial operators are pretty much out of the way, I'll get back into some better operators. Jackal. I think Jackal is good. I don't think Jackal is broken. I think Jackal is a little bit worse than Dokkaebi because Dokkaebi is just so versatile, and Jackal really is a good operator, just not broken. Just nowhere near these operators up here in my opinion, but still a very, very good operator. I think one of the best roaming mechanics in the entire game, hands down. I think the fact that Cav is so good right now also makes Jackal a little bit worse, but Jackal is good. Good operator. Someone who I also think is pretty good is Zofia. Zofia, not broken, but gets a lot of utility. Zofia is really just a slower version of Ashe. Ashe is kind of a Hail Mary play, but if you want consistency out of her, just play Zofia instead. Not much to say about Zofia. She's a well-rounded operator, just good, always has been, always will be, unless they change her. Gridlock, also, I think, is a good operator. I don't think you can never play a Gridlock. I think Gridlock is the best flank operator in the entire game for solo queue. Now, if you're stacked, I think Zero's better, but Nomad, the issue with Nomad is you can just shoot her air jabs so easily. So I don't, like, you can't reliably use Nomad for flanks. It's just not a thing you're able to do. You can use it for runouts, that's for sure, but Gridlock is better at holding flanks, because for Nomad air jabs, all you have to do is shoot it once, and then that's all the sound that it makes. But with Gridlock tracks, you have to shoot the Gridlocks multiple times, which will give you way more of like an audio cue that they're flanking you. Has to go in good for me. Speaking of Nomad, I think Nomad is good. Now, here's the thing, the reason I don't like Nomad for flanks is because it is so easy to just slowly alt walk right next to the air jab and shoot it on the flank. You can see the air jab before the air jab can see you, so it's pretty much useless on flanks. But for runouts, I think air jabs are excellent, right? So if you use Nomad to maybe get your teammates to do a repel strat so that you don't get ran out on from windows, right? She's really, really good there. But even if you have Nomad air jabs on doorways for runouts, it's still not even that good, because people can just throw an impact grenade, or they can literally just crouch, look up, and shoot it while it's right on the doorway. So I don't think Nomad is that good. I think she's still in the good category, a good operator. Flash grenades, 1.5 times scope on the ARX, but just not broken by any means, not broken. Somebody who's a little bit worse than Nomad for comparison, though, I definitely think is Ella. Ella is okay. The shotgun's pretty cool, the scorpion's pretty cool, the playable shield's pretty cool, but her ability really just is not that good. You can still pretty much shoot and see anybody on your screen for absolutely free. The stun does not do that much to you. and the guns are only really forgiving if you're good with your mechanics. So I don't think she's that good. I don't think she really belongs in the place with like Jackal, with Jaeger, with Kapkan, right? So somebody else who's just okay would be Melusi. I think Melusi is just a worse version of Fenrir now. 3 armor, no 1.5 times scope. Again, just a better gadget on the table. It's now that everybody has frag grenades too, and you can just shoot it once you activate it, or you can hack it with Brava. She's literally just not that good. I don't think she's that good. You know, EMP grenades too. She's just okay. Someone else who I think is just okay is Thunderbird. She has faster healing, but not as much healing. Maybe if you're on console, she could be good or even broken. Doesn't have a nitro cell or impacts anymore. Doesn't have a 1.5 times scope anymore. So a lot of the value that she once had is kind of just gone, and if you want that healing aspect, play Doc. He heals more, 1.5 times scope, Bailiff for sight setup, so I don't think Thunderbird is really that good. I think she's the worst healer in the game right now by far. Alibi, same thing. Gun's good, deployable shield's good, Bailiff for sight setup's good, her ability is good, I guess, so I think I'll put her in the good category. Honestly, not compared to these other operators, I have to put her in okay. She's just kind of mediocre, you know, you can play her, or you can play 30 other different operators, right? Like, same thing with Ella for me. It's just a whole lot of mediocre. Pulse situational, you're only going to use him on sites where you're trying to nitro from below, or you're sitting on site trying to nitro people for vert. That's it. Finka right now is good, 1.5 times scope, an LMG if you know how to control it. The adrenal surges are pretty good as well, frag grenades as well. Pretty good operator, not much to say. Mozzie, I think, is a good operator as well. Arguably one of the best roamers in the entire game right now. 1.5 times scope on the Roni. It has, you know, low ammo count, but that's really all there is going for him in terms of bad traits. He has a nitro cell, great information denial, or great information if you want to use him for his cameras. Mozzie, not a bad operator by any means. If you want to play Mozzie every single round, be a Mozzie main, no one would complain whatsoever. Definitely not broken, but he's a good operator for sure. Same thing with Zero. I think Zero's pretty good. I think Zero is a little overhyped by the console community, especially for solo queue when your teammates aren't really watching your flank cameras anyways. But Zero, not a bad operator. Pretty good operator. Now, someone that I want to talk about that a lot of people might be sleeping on is Ying, for sure. I think Ying is good. Dude, I want to put her in broken sometimes, man. There's not a round that I play Ying where I'm losing if I don't die to a spawn peak. I swear to God, dude, you can watch me on stream. Ying is so good. The thing with Ying is like, oh, she gets countered by Warden, right? Warden mains aren't using their abilities anyways, and you can get away with flashing them with a fully cooked Ying Candela, and they won't have time to react to activate their goggles and get rid of the flash by the time that you've killed them, right? So Ying's pretty good, and a rush heavy meta and a 1.5 times scope meta, she's pretty good as well because easily able to use her flashes for rushes, and she has a 1.5 times scope, 80 round LMG, pair that up with smoke grenades, so she can even get the plant down if she wants to, and it pairs up with her ability pretty well, or hard breaching charges to get hatches for hatch drops, and she's a pretty good operator, right? I think Ying is absolutely outstanding, definitely slept on in my opinion. Her other Asian friend, Legion, also a pretty good operator. I think with the Legion buff, you might even could argue that he's broken, honestly. One of the best lurkers in the entire game, even anchors in the entire game. Now, the only issue is that you can see his Legion mines really easily, but if you know how to place Legion mines to where they can't be seen, it's not really an issue. There are only certain scenarios and sites where you're able to do that though, so I think I have to bump him down to good because he's not really that broken on every single site, only on some sites, right? Good operator for sure, you know, super shorty for site setup as well, but that's about it. Legion's just good. Same thing with Frost. I think Frost is good. The thing with Frost is people think she's bad with the Frost rework. I don't agree. But even not even talking about her ability, the reason that Frost is good is not because of her ability. It's the fact that she has a shotgun for sight setup, a 1.5 times scope on a gun with absolutely zero recoil, a deployable shield as well that she can bring, and at worst, if people are shooting your frost mats, that's information for you, right? So I think it's pretty good. Not only this, but even if people are self-reviving out of your frost mats, it's pretty much a dead person anyways because they can't sprint or quick peek correctly, and they leave a huge trail of blood, so they can't even take gunfights to the capacity to win them. So I think Frost is absolutely outstanding. Still just as good after the rework. I don't think the rework really does anything because nobody wants to be self-reviving, literally ever, because you'll lose every single gunfight. It actually makes more sense to wait for your teammates. So I still think she's pretty good, and I think I've played Frost a lot. Hasn't really changed how I play her with the Frost rework. Next, I'm going to go over Echo and Maestro, who I think are both situational. I think if situational category wasn't the thing and I had to place them in one of four, I would probably place them both in good because I think they're good operators. But there are certain sites where playing Echo and Maestro is not going to be as viable because there's rush heavy sites, right? And these two operators are not good with rush heavy sites. They're good with plant heavy sites. Let's take a look at Coastline, good example, right? Rush heavy map, these two operators, not that good on a rush heavy map. You know, a map like Border where people are trying to get the plant down a little more often. Or maps like Clubhouse where everybody has default strats so they know how to get the plant down, right? They might be a little more viable. I think it's situational, but I think they could be put in good. Depends on, you know, what you're feeling. Vigil is okay. I think arguably one of the worst roamers in the game right now. Not due to the fact that he's a bad operator, but just due to the fact that you're comparing him to people like Warden, you know, like Legion, like Solus, like Valk, right? He just doesn't seem to really compare to a lot of other roamers, so I have to put him in okay for me. Somebody who is a roamer that is actually better is Cav. I think Cav is really good right now. Hate me all you want. I think Cav used to be terrible because Jackal was really, really good. Lion was really, really good. Dokkaebi was just starting to see the spotlight. But the fact that she counters Jackal, the fact that you can just ban Dokkaebi and then boom, there's no counters to Cav, pretty nice. And if you know how to play Cav, she can be a pretty nice operator. She has one of the highest defending win rates out of any defender for PC, Emerald, and above. So the best of the best people on the planet playing Siege have a very high win rate with Caviar. That's just how it is. Interrogations are nice too. People that are hating on Cav are kind of just stuck in the old days. Cav is kind of dominating right now. If you think otherwise, I'd love to debate you. Something that I don't think we need to debate on, though, is Smoke. Smoke is good. Always has been good. I don't think the lack of a deployable shield really changes much because you can just use a teammate's deployable shield, and given the fact that there's Wardens almost every single round with a deployable shield, it's not going to be that hard to come across. So Smoke is actually pretty good. Even without a deployable shield, you can still play Smoke to the fullest ability. So Smoke, good operator in my opinion. Same thing. Just overall, a great operator. Not broken, but super balanced, right? He's very versatile. Side setup, SMG-11, Nitro Cell. Not only that, but the Mute Jammer, right? A versatile gadget. Drone Denial, Utility Denial, right? A Dokkaebi and a Lion both get countered by Mute. Wild Denial, Flores Denial, Brava Denial, Twitch Denial. All kinds of stuff that just cannot be used if a Mute is on the board. Great operator. Someone who's maybe not as great is Twitch. Now, a lot of console kids love Twitch, but if you're on PC, Twitch is never really that good because it's so much easier to just shoot Twitch drones, and the meta over here is also just completely different. And high elo, you're not using a Twitch unless you're countering Mira. That's pretty much it. And even then, now we have Ashe and Kali to do that too. And with the F2 not being as good, it just seems like Brava and Flores are better alternatives for what she does because they get more value than a Twitch ever would. Now, if you want to be more aggressive than playing Brava, than playing Flores, then Twitch will definitely be the person to do it. But she's just, I don't know, just kind of lacks the oomph that other operators have, in my opinion. Buck, I think, is good. Vertical operators like Sledge and Buck will always be good. Ram is situational, though, because you can't play her on a lot of sites, but Buck, you can play below and above. Sledge, you can play, you don't even have to play Vert with Sledge. You don't even have to play Vert with Sledge either. Like, Sledge is just good because he has a sledgehammer. But Buck is also good because you're able to play above and below any site that has verticality. And then also you can use the skeleton key like you would use the sledgehammer as a way to get entry frags and to make rotations for yourself rather than just making. Also, 1.5 times scope on a good AR, a Gone 6, flash grenades, or hard breaching charges. So overall, a very, very good operator in my opinion. Speaking of a good operator, I think Yana is a good operator. Just because she lost her frags doesn't really mean much, especially because frags got reworked. I think if anything, flash grenades actually help her more because they better suit the entry fragging playstyle. Still a great operator in my opinion. I don't think she's really going to go anywhere. Osa is situational. I think Osa's a pretty good operator, especially on console, and people can't really aim to deal with her as well. Osa, even in high-ranked PC lobbies, is a menace, but I don't think she can be played on every single site because you can tunnel her out or flank her or impact grenade her very, very easily. Especially on certain sites with certain angles. So she is good, but only really on certain situations, in my opinion. Lion is good. I honestly want to argue that Lion is broken. Keyword, though, in the right hands. Lion in the right hands, broken operator, like I said. The fact that most players are on console and they're silver and gold players, they don't know how to fully utilize Lion to his fullest potential, especially if you're not stacked. You can't really use Lion to his fullest potential. I think Lion is good, especially if you have stack, if you're on PC, if you're in a high rank, right? Lion can be good for taking space, getting plants down, getting map control, but even on a surface level, you can just use him to get kills with the scans. He's a 1.5 times scope with a drum mag. He has EMP grenades, a Gone 6. The versatility just goes on and on and on and on and on, just like it does with Dokkaebi. So I think Lion is a good operator, but someone who maybe isn't as good would be Thorn. Thorn is an okay operator. 1.5 times scope, deployable shield, but that is all Thorn has going for her. There are people that do what Thorn does, but just better. If you wanted to play Shield with a 1.5 times scope, play Warden. If you want a good trap operator, play Capcan, play Legion, right? There's no place for Thorn in this meta because she's so lackluster, which is why I'm putting her in the OK category. Another person that you might not expect to be in the OK category is going to be Grim. They've buffed and reworked Grim a lot, but he just gets outshined by other operators that do his job but better. You want an entry fragger with a good gun? Play Ashe, play Dokkaebi, play Lion, play Jackal, play literally anybody else that does entry fragging even a little bit. Now, if you want to play him for information, play Lion, play Dokkaebi, play Jackal, play anybody with a drone, right? So, like, there's just not a place for Grim. There's just not a place. Versatile, but the ability is just performed by literally every other attacker in the entire game, so there's never really a place to play a Grim. There is always a place, though, to play Warden, which is why Warden, I think, needs to go in good. I don't think Warden goes in broken, because to be in broken, your ability also has to be in broken, and we all know Warden's ability is just bad. If you take away Warden's 1.5 times scope, no one is playing Warden, right? So I think Warden is good in today's meta because you can get a lot of frags with him very, very easily. He also brings in a playable shield or a nitro cell, which is good utility. And if you play Warden every round, no one's gonna complain because everyone plays Warden all the time because he's good. He's a good operator. Not much that I can really talk about with Warden. He's pretty simplistic. Someone a tad bit more complicated though would be Knock, and I think Knock is good. You know, you have the frag grenades, you have the ability to sneak past cameras, so if you want to play a secondary entry fragger, Knock definitely will be your person. I could go on and on about Knock, how to play Knock, things of that nature, how to deny cameras in an even more efficient way than you currently are doing. A very complicated operator if in the right hands. A good operator nonetheless. Someone who's not as good though would definitely be a Rooney. There's just too much that counters a Rooney. A Rooney as an operator might sound great because you can use her to deny a lot of things, but the fact that she denies so many things is actually her downfall. If anyone brings flash grenades on the enemy team, a Rooney is completely useless. Not only this, but she also doesn't have a 1.5 on her P10 Rooney, and her secondary utility is a bit lacking, and she's a 3 armor, right? So just, she's okay. If you want to do what she does, play Jaeger, play Wamai, and you'll have a much better time. Someone who is a bit more consistent, though, would be Goyo. I think Goyo is definitely good. Good utility, the playstyle versatility you get out of playing Goyo due to the fact that you just set his stuff down in the prep phase and you can play however you want is also very relaxing for most players. So any player can play him. You get a lot of value when you play Goyo, a 1.5 times scope, a nitro cell, right? Impacts. So I think Goyo is just an outstanding operator for sure. Someone who I also think is outstanding right now is Wamai for the same reasons as Jaeger. Not only that, but Wamai also has a 1.5 times scope. And if you're more of an anchor and less of a roamer, then Wamai can definitely be for you as opposed to somebody like Warden or Jaeger, right? Wamai, a good operator. Not much I can really say about him. He's just versatile, solid operator. Someone who is a bit more versatile that I could talk ages about is Flores, and I think Flores is really situational. Now, I used to put Flores in good, but the reason that I think Flores is situational is because we're in a fast-paced meta, and Flores has to be on his drones for so long. His drones are so slow, and even then, it's the same thing as Brava, where if they don't bring deployable shield or a zombies, there's no reason for you to be playing Flores, right? Now everybody has frag grenades too, so it's like, you really only have certain situations where you can play Flores. If your teammates aren't bringing frag grenades, if they don't have a mute, and if they have utility that you need to be Floresing, and your teammates are all playing slow. That's 4 caveats that you need to play this operator. Whereas Sledge, you can play every round. No caveats, right? That's why I think Flores is definitely situational, especially compared to the operators I've listed above him. But what you've all been waiting for, the final operator on this list and the newest addition to Rainbow Six Siege with Operation Deep Freeze, which is Turborao. How do I pronounce his name? This has got to be the hardest name to pronounce in all of Siege, aside from like Monty. Turborao? I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce his name or their name. I don't know anymore. The new operator, that's what I'm gonna say. The new operator, I think, is situational at best. Honestly, I want to put him in rework. He's so bad. It's such a bad operator. Like, okay, cool. You can help your bandit and Cade. The electricity from their gadget doesn't even activate because you freeze the gadget. And if you're freezing the gadget and giving bandit and Cade time to trick the wall, the thermite and the ace are just going to take their utility off the wall. So you're not even going to kill it. So all it does is waste time. That's all it does. So I don't even think it's good situationally either. I just want to put him in okay. I don't even think he's as good as like Alibi or Ella. So honestly, I kind of want them to rework him. He's not that good. He's just not that good. Even if you, again, if you pair it with Cade or with Bandit, it doesn't matter because they'll just take their thermite, they'll take their ace off the wall. So it doesn't matter. It does not matter. The only situation that you can use it with is helping your Cade hatch trick if they have a Hibana. That's it. And even then you can impact trick. So he's just useless, right? It's such a bad gadget. They need to buff him in some way. They need to buff him so much that I honestly would consider it more of a rework than a buff, which is why I'm putting him in the rework section. Is it even a him? I keep forgetting. I don't know anymore. Anyways, my name's Alka. Check out this next video, and I'll see y'all later.